My family consists of me, my college-going sister, and our parents. Our parents are ordinary folks, and my sister, while not exceptionally beautiful, has a likable face and a slim figure. For some reason, I found myself developing a close relationship with my aunt. I'm going to confess a bit of that story here. Last year, I took my college entrance exam, but my score was much lower than expected, so I couldn't get into the college of my choice. I had no choice but to retake the exam. I've been studying since January, so it's been 4 months. But studying doesn't mean you just sit at your desk all the time. Occasionally, I had to go out for some fresh air, meet friends, and relieve stress with a drink or two. It's the only way I could fully concentrate on studying again. I don't have a girlfriend and no experience with women. After graduating high school, my friends would boast at our occasional drinking gatherings, saying things like, "Hey, I met my girlfriend yesterday, and we've already done it. It's so great, haha." But I never really envied their experiences, because I knew I would have one someday. I just remembered my parents' advice to wait a bit before getting into a relationship, as there would be plenty of opportunities once I became an adult. One day, I felt so frustrated studying that I wanted to go out for some fresh air. It was April, and I wanted to enjoy the spring weather, so I decided to visit a nearby park. I had a kick scooter, which I bought to deliver food after the college entrance exam. I bought it from a used goods app, and it was a pretty decent scooter. I used to keep it in front of my room and charge it there. I had no problems riding it until then. But my misfortune started there. I was riding my scooter through an alley and collided with a car coming from the opposite direction around a corner. Because of the high speed of the scooter, my left leg was broken and both of my hands were injured. The hospital said I needed to be admitted for 3 months for my bones to heal properly. I wanted to go home, but they told me to stay in the hospital to prevent further complications. The time in the hospital was so long and boring. As a student preparing for the exam, I couldn't study well, especially because I couldn't even turn the pages of a book with my injured hands. And at the age of 20, the prime of my youth, it was suffocating to be stuck in a hospital, just watching TV all day. I couldn't even go out to get some fresh air by myself. Moreover, it was still difficult for me to walk with crutches because of my leg injury. I know it's a bit crude, but I usually took care of my big business in the afternoon, when my mother was visiting, and if no one was around, I would press the bell on my bed, and a staff member would come and take me to the patient restroom in a wheelchair. I had injured both of my hands, but I was able to press the clean button on the bite it in the restroom. I hadn't even been hospitalized for a month yet, so I had to stay for another month or so before I could unwrap the bandages. I felt like I was going crazy. I imagined that once I was discharged and able to freely use my hands and feet, it would feel incredibly special. The only thing that alleviated my mood was when my parents and sister came to visit often, and we went out together in a wheelchair. My father worked at a company, so my mother usually came to the hospital every day, but she had to go down to the countryside for about a week because my grandmother was not feeling well. So my sister, who was in college, came to visit me. "Are you okay now?" "Oh, right, Dad sold your scooter. Don't ride a scooter ever again. It's fast, but you had a big accident because you rode it without a helmet. It's not just motorcycles or cars that are dangerous. Accidents with scooters or bicycles can also be serious," my sister said. My sweet and cute sister. "Okay, I got it. I won't ride a scooter. Now I'm more scared of scooters." With that, my sister stood up for a moment. She came over to me. The reason was that it was lunchtime and I had to eat. But I couldn't eat by myself, so someone had to feed me. You're an adult now, what's this about? I'll feed you lunch," my sister said as she brought a spoon to my mouth. Then, instinctively, I looked at my sister's attire, and my manhood began to react. "Open your mouth. I'll feed you," my sister said. Then she lowered the blanket that I was covering at that time, because it was a bit cumbersome to feed me. But oops, my manhood reacted when I saw my sister's voluptuous figure, and it showed. I'm usually a bit larger, but because I reacted, I was even bigger. It seemed like my sister noticed too, because she had a slightly flustered look in her eyes. It was very embarrassing, but my physical condition wasn't normal, so I couldn't quickly cover up because I was embarrassed. I felt very sorry, but I had no choice but to leave it as it was, hoping that this time would pass quickly. My sister also seemed a bit embarrassed at my condition, but she just pretended not to notice and fed me with a spoon. However, that situation was more stimulating. My manhood continued to grow. Suddenly, I remembered a novel I read on the internet. It was about a sister helping her brother, who was in the hospital, relieve his sexual desires. But that's just a novel. It's different from reality. Isn't that a fact that everyone knows? I couldn't say a word, continuing to eat the food my sister fed me, but a thought crossed my mind. Could it possibly be possible? The room I was in was meant for 2 people. But since my roommate had been discharged a few days ago, I was alone. I didn't have to worry about others' prying eyes. As I ate, I kept pondering on what to do until I finally made up my mind. "Sister," I called. "What?" she responded. "I have a favor to ask." "Okay, what is it?" I hesitated a lot, but finally blurted out. "This might sound weird, but," pointing downwards. I continued, "Can you help me out? I've been in the hospital for so long, I'm going crazy." The second I blurted it out, my sister's face turned to one of shock. "No, it's nothing. Just a thought. Pay it no mind." My sister looked like she heard something she shouldn't have. She turned to me, annoyed, and said, "You really can't stop yourself, can you? Stop talking nonsense and watch the tea." She turned the tea on. I couldn't focus on whatever was playing. My mind was filled with all sorts of thoughts, and I started to react again, probably because my sister hadn't covered me up with the blanket. My sister, being observant, seemed to notice again but pretended not to. For about 10 minutes, the air in the room was tense, and we were as awkward as we had been when we first met. I started thinking about how to resolve this situation that I had initiated, and decided to speak up. "Sister?" "What?" "Never mind." As I was about to speak, I looked at her face and forgot what I was about to say. Perhaps it was because I shocked her with my words, but her face had twisted slightly. We sat there for another 10 minutes, silently watching the tea on the wall. I couldn't take back what I had already said, and I wanted to apologize, but the words just wouldn't come out. Then she said she was leaving and warned me not to talk nonsense again. She glared at me one last time before leaving. My sister and I aren't blood siblings. When my mother was pregnant with my sister, she had a difficult pregnancy due to toxemia. The doctor advised her that getting pregnant again would be too risky, but my mother wanted to give my sister a sibling, so she adopted me from an orphanage. After my sister left in a huff, I felt embarrassed and fell asleep in agony. The next day, my sister didn't come to the hospital, and my mother called. She said that my aunt, who lived nearby, would be coming to the hospital for a few days. My aunt? She was in her late 20s and had been married for 2 years. She had graduated with a degree in mathematics and had made a name for herself as a private tutor. I didn't know what my sister had said to my mother, but it was so embarrassing to have my aunt come in her place. My aunt came in place of my sister, helping with my meals and comforting me, recognizing the stress of a long-term hospital stay. The next day, she visited again, telling me to ask for anything I wanted as she had some time. I requested help with math studies, and she willingly solved problems I didn't understand. Even after that, there was still time left. My aunt stroked my head, saying, "Speak up while I'm here. Don't regret it after I leave." I then made the same request I had made to my sister. My aunt looked at me with a very surprised expression. She then moved towards the door and firmly locked it, effectively barring anyone from entering from outside. And then she acceded to my request. It was my first time exposing my body in front of a woman. Moreover, it was my aunt, who was pretty and bright. I liked my aunt a lot, although I had never shown it. My aunt helped me out twice, saying how frustrated a young man, who can't even use his hands freely, must be. I thought my aunt understood a man's heart because she was married, and I felt grateful for her overflowing consideration. On one hand, I felt extremely embarrassed, but honestly, I felt very relieved. I couldn't even look at my aunt's face properly and thanked her. My aunt lightly patted my shoulder and went home. The next day, my aunt resolved my difficulties as soon as she arrived, and I received praise from her. She said it was more manly than her husband's. Hearing the compliment made me feel really good. I told her that she should take responsibility for me, since she was the first to see my body, and if possible, I wanted to meet her privately after my discharge. My aunt squinted her eyes and responded with an "okay." I ended my long hospital stay and returned home. I got along well with my sister as if nothing had happened and received math tutoring from my aunt. Fortunately, I got good scores and could enter the university I wanted. My aunt was very happy, saying that she was rewarded for teaching, and we had a meeting outside as promised. I was very clumsy when we first got intimate, but my aunt patiently waited. Thanks to my aunt's consideration, I could gradually improve. I was able to grab both opportunities, meeting with my aunt and entering university. These days, my aunt is squeezing out her non-existent time to meet with me. After breakfast on the morning of the Thanksgiving Day, my uncle and mother went to visit the graves. And my aunt said she would not go to her parents' house because she had a severe headache. But that was a scenario we had set up. My aunt's acting was excellent. All the family members went to visit the graves, and we had a good time at the motel we had reserved. There was a joke we had been playing around with. She said she would open the back door someday. I am very grateful to my aunt who opened the back door for me, enduring the pain and showing me the appearance I like. I intend to focus on my caring and lovely aunt.